The cream-colored envelope arrived on an ordinary Thursday morning, nestled between work documents and a package from Paris. At first glance, I almost dismissed it entirely, but the handwriting made me freeze. Daniel's familiar scrawl, slightly slanted with all caps for my name. My heart skipped, not from longing, but from curiosity about what my ex-husband could possibly want after 2 years of blessed silence. Inside was an elegant wedding invitation embossed in gold, announcing the union of Daniel Harris and Jessica Reed. But it was the handwritten note at the bottom that made my jaw clench. Thought you might want to see how it's done right. The audacity was breathtaking. This wasn't an olive branch. It was a calculated attempt to humiliate me, to parade his new life in front of the woman he'd discarded like yesterday's news. 2 years earlier, Daniel had shattered our 6-year marriage with the casual cruelty of someone discussing the weather. "Claire, you've changed. I need someone who keeps things exciting," he'd announced while leaning against our kitchen counter, as if demolishing a life together required no more effort than ordering coffee. I'd stood there clutching my mug, watching him walk away toward Jessica, 10 years younger, fresh-faced, and eager to slip into the role I'd been playing. The aftermath was brutal. In our tight-knit Boston suburb, news traveled fast. Friends stopped calling, acquaintances offered pitying smiles at the grocery store, and Jessica wasted no time moving into my old life, wearing my jewelry, and posting Instagram photos from our favorite vacation spots. The humiliation burned through me like acid, but I discovered something powerful about rock bottom. It gives you a solid foundation to rebuild from. My best friend Emily became my lifeline during those dark months. "Claire, this isn't your ending," she declared with her trademark no-nonsense tone. "This is your rebirth." Those words sparked something inside me. I started small, returning to the gym, eating nourishing food instead of numbing myself with junk, hiring a trainer named Sophia who didn't tolerate excuses. Slowly, my body began to change, but more importantly, so did my mind. I threw myself into an executive marketing course I'd postponed for years, and by graduation, prestigious firms were courting me. I chose one that offered travel opportunities, and suddenly my passport filled with stamps from Italy, Greece, and France. Each journey helped me rediscover pieces of myself that Daniel had gradually worn away during our marriage. It was in Milan that fate introduced me to Alexander Bennett. Tall, impeccably dressed, with the kind of magnetic presence that commanded attention without trying, Alex was speaking at a tech conference where I was working on a project. We found ourselves at the same dinner table, and conversation flowed like fine wine. Unlike Daniel, Alex actually listened, really listened, to what I had to say. By month's end, we were inseparable. Alex didn't just love me, he respected me. He noticed how I took my coffee, how I tucked my hair behind my ear when thinking deeply. He didn't flinch at my emotional scars or try to reshape me into someone else's vision. With him, I wasn't rebuilding to prove anything to anyone. I was simply living, authentically and fully. One autumn afternoon, nearly 18 months after my divorce, I spotted a midnight blue gown in a boutique window. Floor length, sequined just enough to catch light without being gaudy, it whispered of quiet power. I tried it on and felt something settle over me, a sense of destiny. I bought it without knowing why, trusting that someday it would serve its purpose. Now, staring at Daniel's wedding invitation, that purpose crystallized. When Alex arrived that evening, I showed him the invitation with its smug little note. His slow smile told me everything. "Then let's make sure the audience gets more than they bargained for," he said, and I knew we were thinking the same thing. We spent hours planning our approach. This wouldn't be about causing a scene or seeking revenge. It would be about presence, about walking into a space where I'd once been diminished and proving without words that I'd transcended the entire narrative. We visited a high-end tailor in New York, where Alex was fitted for a midnight black tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped off a magazine cover. In the evening gown section, my fingers found a champagne silk dress that stopped my breath. Fitted at the waist with a subtle shimmer that caught light like water at sunset, the neckline was daring but elegant, the train long enough to glide without tripping. When I emerged from the fitting room, Alex's expression said everything. "That's the one." The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright. As we drove to Cape Cod in the Rolls-Royce Phantom Alex had arranged, I felt completely calm. The vineyard estate was picture perfect. Sprawling green fields, whitewashed barns converted to event spaces, and rows of cars attended by uniformed valets. Daniel had spared no expense for his perfect day. Our arrival was poetry in motion. The Phantom glided to a stop as other guests watched from modest sedans, their chatter faltering at the sight of our car. When Alex opened my door and I stepped out in that champagne silk gown, the sunlight caught the fabric and made it shimmer like liquid gold. I didn't need to look around to know we had captured everyone's attention. I could feel the shift in the air. Inside, the reception was in full swing, white flowers and twinkles. Ing lights created a fairy tale atmosphere, with Jessica greeting guests in her beautiful gown, while Daniel held court at the bar. Then the murmurs began. He turned to see what had captured the room's attention, and I watched his face change, laughter draining away, replaced by a stiffness around his jaw as he blinked repeatedly, as if I might disappear if he looked hard enough. Alex and I moved through the crowd with measured grace, conversations dipping into silence as we passed. When we reached the dance floor's edge, Alex addressed the nearest guests with perfect charm. "Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alexander Bennett, and this is my fiancée, Clare Morgan." The word fiancé landed like a dropped crystal, sending ripples of surprise through the gathering. He continued seamlessly, "We're flying to Paris next week for our engagement party, but when we received Daniel's thoughtful invitation, we couldn't resist coming to wish them well in person. It was a masterclass in civility, words so polite that objecting would expose the underlying tension, yet everyone heard the subtext loud and clear." Jessica stepped forward with a brittle smile. "Claire, how lovely of you to come." I met her gaze evenly. "Thank you. You look beautiful, Jessica." She blinked, unsure whether to accept the compliment or search for hidden meaning. I left it hanging, turning my attention to the flower arrangements nearby. Daniel finally approached, his forced smile not reaching his eyes. "Claire, this is unexpected." His voice carried an edge of lost control. "Life's full of surprises," I replied lightly. "I hear congratulations are in order." The room fell so quiet I could hear cutlery clinking in the distance before conversations resumed in urgent whispers. We stayed just long enough to be photographed, to let our presence sink in. Alex ordered champagne, and we mingled briefly with familiar cheese. The longer we remained, the more Daniel's composure cracked. His glances became sharper, more desperate, as if trying to assess whether I was enjoying myself, and knowing that I was. When we decided to leave, we walked to the exit with the same unhurried grace we'd entered with. People parted naturally, creating a pathway for our departure. At the doorway, Alex turned with perfect politeness. "We'll let you get back to your day. Best wishes." Daniel's jaw tightened as he managed a strained, "Thank you." Outside, as we settled into the Rolls-Royce, I caught one last glimpse through the wide windows. Daniel stood frozen where we'd left him, staring at the space we'd vacated while Jessica spoke rapidly at his side, her smile completely gone. The car door closed with a satisfying cushioned click, and as we pulled away, Alex squeezed my hand. "You were magnificent," he said softly. My phone started buzzing before we'd traveled 10 minutes. Text after text from Daniel, first pleading, then desperate. "Can we talk, please?" Followed by, "I shouldn't have invited you, that was a mistake." And finally, "You didn't have to show up like that." Like that. As if my transformation, my happiness, my very existence was somehow an affront to his carefully orchestrated day. Hours later came the longest message. "I made a mistake letting you go. Seeing you today, I realized what I lost. If there's any part of you that still cares..." I didn't finish reading it. I simply deleted the entire thread because his regret wasn't about love, it was about losing control. And I'd learned that control masquerading as affection was something I no longer needed in my life. That night, sitting on our penthouse balcony watching city lights twinkle below, Alex asked, "Paris next week?" I leaned into his warmth and smiled. "Paris. And after that, wherever we feel like." I didn't need revenge or closure. I'd already won the moment I walked into that room with my head high, accompanied by someone who loved me for exactly who I was. Some battles aren't fought with anger or loud words. Some are won with a gown that catches light, a partner who beams with pride, and the quiet knowledge that you've outgrown a life you once thought you couldn't survive without. Daniel would carry the image of my arrival forever. The moment his wedding stopped being about him and became the day he realized he was just a chapter in my story, not the author of it. Life has a beautiful way of coming full circle. Sometimes the people who thought they buried you end up having to watch you bloom in ways they never imagined possible. The lesson I learned is simple but powerful. Never waste precious energy proving yourself to someone who chose to walk away. Instead, channel every ounce of that energy into becoming the most radiant version of yourself. Trust me, Success, self-respect, and genuine love speak louder than any revenge speech ever could.